Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. Got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me, once again, is my arch nemesis when it comes to fantasy football, Mark Souza. How you going, buddy?
Oh, I am good. My fantasy teams played very, very well this week. I'm looking to win all four of my season longs if I can get a good performance from Zeke Elliott tonight. And I won a little bit of cash on DraftKings this weekend. So, how are you doing?
Doing fine. Doing just fine. I had a couple of daily fantasy picks myself. Won a couple bucks, too. I'm feeling pretty good. Thank you, Michael Thomas. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
I didn't go overboard with my winnings, but I increased my budget. So, I'm happy about that.
Your budget.
I'm happy about that. More lottery tickets for future games, So,
and that's where they get you.
You want to start off with our push-up challenge, or do you want to start off?
Fine. I know.
Hold on.
Okay.
Now, I will say I don't feel particularly good about winning this one. And yes, spoiler alert, I did win. Yeah. 115 to 114. 115.9 to 114.2. Gronk didn't play, so you lost.
In my defense, he was not on the injury report at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought he was going to play. I didn't see that coming. So, but I'm not going to feel bad about my win. All right,
because you finally won one. I won two straight, and the only time you actually beat me was because one of my guys just decided not to play.
Did you win two straight?
I won two straight.
I don't know about that. I don't know if we've done this 5 times. Because you were gone 1 week, so I don't know.
This is our third time doing this.
So we've done it. I don't know about that. I'll have to check the record book. I think it's 4.
Won 3 straight.
I think it's 4.
I haven't lost. This is my
I think
first
I won
loss.
the first one. You won the next 2, and then we didn't have one, and then I won this one.
Pretty sure you didn't win. Whatever.
I definitely won the first one. You had to do push-ups once. So, anyways, I had Cam Newton. Cam Newton had 25.1. You had Jared Goff, 35.3. Advantage Jeff. I had Todd Gurley, 16.9. You had Kareem Hunt, 34.6. Advantage Jeff. I had Thielen, 10.7. You had Hopkins, 23.5. Advantage Jeff. Now, this is where it gets interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Tight end, you had 0. I had 25.4 from Kelsey. And then the big one, the Michael Thomas touchdown at the end did it for me. I needed every one of his points, every one of those yards. 38.1 for Michael Thomas for me. You had Melvin Gordon, who had a good game, 20.8. So, Jeff, it is now time to pay the piper.
Was it 25?
Get down there and give me 25.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, fine. Hold on. I'm getting up.
He's getting up. He's making his way. He's putting his hands on the floor. He's creating room. All right. He's probably on one knee, but I can't see. But he's going. He's going. He's at 5.
I'm at 8.
He's at 8. He's at 10.
Nope, that's 11.
He's going. He's going the distance. He's all alone. He's almost there. How many?
Done.
He's done. 25 push-ups for Jeff. A man of his word.
They were legit.
Legit push-ups. Next time on Friday, we'll do this again for 30. push-ups. That'll be settled next week.
Goody.
So
hopefully I'll pick someone that doesn't not play. Doesn't play.
Yeah.
Hopefully does.
You know what's interesting too? You had the choice of tight ends. You took Gronk. I took Kelsey. That was big.
Okay.
That was big. All right.
I didn't pick Kelsey because I had already Hunt, and I don't want two of the same guys on one team.
I mean, you could do worse than Hunt, and if you would have went Kelsey and Hunt, you would have killed it. But
how was I supposed to know?
Let's go over in this show. We're gonna do.
Oh, did you also see this? Fortnite announced that they made a partnership with the NFL, so you can wear jerseys in the game.
Interesting.
That's kind of cool.
But we're going to do studs in the first segment. We'll do duds in the second. And, of course, what you should do with those duds, because that's the important part. Waiver wire pickups in segment 3, always tough. Bye weeks, injuries, things like that. Defenses. We saw yesterday how crucial picking up the right defense can be. So, in segment 4, we'll talk about other news and notes in the world of football as it relates to the game of fantasy football. So, Jeff, let's start with studs of the week quarterback. Who's your stud?
My stud?
Give me a stud.
Well, this might sound obvious.
Drew Brees?
Yeah. 346 yards and 4 touchdowns. Do I need to say more?
You don't. He killed it. And he had that really good pass to Michael Thomas. Sorry, I'm going to keep bringing it up.
Yeah, well, Michael Thomas also did the Jordan Horton celebration. We should have gotten more points in fantasy.
You should get extra points for creative celebrations. I agree. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
All right, so my stud is Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan Breeze had the best game, but Ryan is my favorite quarterback of the week because I said to start him against all odds, and he put up some points.
Against all odds.
On the road against a good defense on grass, that usually spells bad news for Matt Ryan. But no, he would not be denied. 36 fantasy points, 350 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Take a bow, Matt Ryan. That's a great game.
Take a bow, son. Take a bow.
All right, so another stud. Do you have another quarterback stud?
He was my main stud, but you know what? This might be an unpopular opinion. But you know what? Someone else had 4 touchdowns as well.
Who's that?
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
He did. He was on my daily fantasy teams, on 2 of my season-long teams.
He did very well. The team lost, but that wasn't his fault.
He's the most fun fantasy football quarterback because it doesn't matter if they're winning or losing. It's Ryan Fitzmagic time. They need to throw the football. They cannot run the football. Jeff, people were still wary of picking him up in waivers.
I wouldn't blame him.
We told the people last week. You got to do it.
It was mainly you.
Because he puts up numbers. He had one game where he didn't put up numbers. One game. Every other game he's been a top 3 quarterback. Can you believe that? Isn't that crazy?
My mind is blown.
And you have. I'll give you my last stud. Jared Goff. I think we saw it coming. Breeze and Goff, we knew that it was going to be a high-scoring game. Goff had 391 and 3 touchdowns. He threw a pick, but man, 35.3 fantasy points. I'll take it every time. Those are your studs at quarterback. How about we move on to running back, Jeff? If you have a running back, who's your running back stud of the week? Maybe the guy you picked for our matchup?
Well, if you're saying Kareem Hunt, then yes.
What a game.
Do I need to explain how well he did, or is it just...
Can you explain to the people?
But I don't know if I need to explain it. I mean,
he had that one catch for 50 yards and touchdown, which was a big one.
He literally just outran everybody. He just basically did a full-on sprint. And
it was nice because it was at the beginning.
Did anyone even touch him?
I think at the beginning he kind of got away from one guy.
He had 17 attempts for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing. But with passing, he actually also contributed with that one reception for 50 yards and a touchdown. Mm-hmm. So
he started off the game with that. So he started off hot. You know, he already had like 13 fantasy points right away.
So he had over 100 yards from scrimmage right off. Yeah.
Yeah, what a game for Kareem Hunt. My stud of the week, Alvin Kamara. Not only was he super impressive running the ball and catching the ball, 4 catches, 34 yards, a touchdown, 19 carries, 82 yards, and 2 touchdowns, but he was decisively better and used more often than Mark Ingram. So if you were an Alvin Kamara owner and people try to talk you into trading him a couple weeks ago because of Ingram coming back and you didn't do it, congratulations, because you made the right choice. Kamara.
Yes. Good for you.
31.6 fantasy points. This is half PPR scoring, by the way. You have another stud?
And that shocks no one?
No. You have another stud?
For running back?
Yeah.
You know who did? Jordan Howard.
You had a good game.
47. Yeah, he had 47 yards rushing, granted, but he had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
so
he was one of my stardoms this week. Yes, Jordan Howard. Good job, man. He got that easy touchdown, that 1-yard run.
Good for you.
Yes. How about a guy that I said to sit? You know, I talked about some guys that I said you should definitely start, like Matt Ryan, like Jordan Howard. One guy I told the people, Jeff, and I'm going to own this one. I said sit him because he's playing a tough defense on the road. He's in a kind of a running back by committee. Tevin Coleman. I said to sit Tevin Coleman. And what did he do yesterday? He made me look foolish because he had 5 catches for 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also carried the ball 13 for 88. He had 30 fantasy points, Jeff. How wrong was I?
Pretty darn wrong.
Tell the people. I know you'll love it. I know you'll love it when I'm wrong. Tell the people.
You're wrong.
All right. So
that's what you wanted me to say, right?
You have another stud of the week?
In running backs?
Yeah.
No, those are the main 2 for me. But I have a dud.
No, we'll do that next segment.
Sorry.
But running backs. I have one more stud.
You have one more stud? Okay, go for it.
Well, I have 2, but James Conner, another great performance, but he's not the one I'm talking about. You know who I am talking about?
Who?
Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson. He only had 1 carry. 9 catches, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is a guy that I liked on daily fantasy. I had him in a couple of my lineups. Figured with the coaching change, it might be an uptick in usage for Duke Johnson. 9 catches, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a really, really good game. Duke Johnson, nice to see him back on track. Before this game, he only had 2 other games where he was over 10 points, and he doubled his best output yesterday. So, great game for him. How about we move on to wide receivers, Jeff? Give me your wide receiver stud.
My wide receiver stud. Keenan Allen.
Okay, Keenan Allen, because he had a big game.
124 yards on 6 receptions, and he had 2 rushes already. He had 2 rushes for 28 yards, so he had a pretty good game.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, you know who I have to pick. My man, my boy, Michael Thomas. 38 fantasy points. He led
That's why I kept that for you.
He led all non-quarterbacks in fantasy points yesterday. 12 catches, 211 yards, and of course a touchdown. That 72-yard touchdown at the end of the game was the play that sealed the deal. And of course, I mean, you talked about it, the Joe Horn celebration. You should get extra points for that. You should get extra points for...
You should get 20 extra points.
Nostalgia celebrations, nostalgic celebrations. Boom.
It was awesome. It was really cool.
It was fantastic. So... What other studs did you have? We're still doing studs. Wide receivers.
Let's see. I said Keenan Allen. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
I might have to go with a certain Ram, actually.
Are you talking about My Little Cooper Cup?
Is he your pet?
My Little Cooper Cup.
It sounds like you're doing the My Little Pony
Who
thing.
is it? They all kind of had good games, right? Cooks.
Well, I was going to say Brandon Cooks because he had 114 yards on 6 receptions with a touchdown.
That was a good game. What about...
Coop only had 89 yards, so he didn't do that well.
You know who had a big game yesterday? Adam Humphries. Tampa Bay. 8 catches, 82 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He is becoming a big part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. One of his counterparts also was a dud performer. We'll talk about him in the next segment. But he has 7 catches and 8 catches in his last 2 games. So Adam Humphries, a very good player.
I have one more stud that we need to talk about.
Go ahead.
Julio Jones.
Yes.
7 receptions, 121 yards,
and
1 touchdown. He did it.
That's it.
He did it. The curse is over.
You have to trade him now, guys.
With the world.
The trade deadline is coming up. You got to trade him now because you know he ain't having another game like that. The trade deadline is this week,
right?
by the way.
You're kidding, right?
Well, he scored 1 touchdown.
That's it?
He has 1 touchdown in 8 games, so he's not going to score you another touchdown in fantasy football, right? We're just going by the numbers.
Oh,
We're just going by the law of averages here. All right, so how about we go to tight ends? Let's see some duds. Or some studs.
Sure.
Excuse me, studs. We're still on the studs.
I'll go first. Greg Olsen.
16.
76 yards and 1 touchdown. That's pretty good for a tight end.
You don't want to talk about Travis, my boy?
Who?
Kelsey.
I'm kidding.
7 for 99, 2 touchdowns. He was double covered on the second touchdown, too. What a throw by Mahomes. Man, is he the best tight end or what? He's just putting up numbers every week.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Every week.
Trade him for, like, you know who would
Don't
be great?
trade him.
No,
Don't
trade
trade
him
him.
for Nathan Peterman. That'd be great.
That would
Okay,
be collusion. No one in your league would allow it. All right, give me another stud.
Another stud. Can I see someone from Thursday Night Football?
Oh, you're talking about Kittle?
George Kittle. What a game he had. That nasty one-handed catch. He had great stats himself. I mean, he had not just a couple receptions. He had I had the stats and they just went away. Got it. Okay. 4 receptions, 108 yards, 1 touchdown, 27 yards average on a catch. That's doing it.
Yeah, a stud for me is O.J. Howard, Tampa Bay, 4 catches, 53 yards. We saw 2 touchdowns from him, both times inside the 5-yard line. You know the Bucs cannot run the football, so they throw the ball when they're that close. They found
throw it
O.J.
at
Howard.
nausea.
I love it. So,
Because you have Fitzpatrick.
O.J. Howard, it's just fun. All right, how about a surprising stud, Jeff Heuerman from Denver. You know, the Broncos traded Demaryius Thomas. They have some young receivers, but Jeff Heuerman, big target yesterday. 10 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown against Houston. That's a big, big game. Maybe a player you should look out for. We'll talk about him later on in the show. Jeff, defenses win championships. Which defense played really good?
Do you need to ask me that? The Chicago Bears. They just... Well, granted, they faced the worst quarterback in NFL history, arguably, in Nathan Peterman. I'm sure the dude's lovely. I'm sure he's a nice guy, does good for the community, but when he's on the football field, he is terrible. And it's almost offensive.
Yes, I agree. How about the Dolphins defense, though? 27 fantasy points. They had a touchdown, 4 picks, and they only gave up 6 points. 27, that's really good.
Absolutely. And this was a big defensive week, I have to say. There were a good amount of
The
pick
Vikings
sixes.
also had 25 points. A big game. They sacked Stafford 10 times, and they had a touchdown return on the fumble as well. What do you say we go to break? When we come back,
if you say please.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the negative parts of fantasy football. The players that just...
And to be honest, the more fun ones to talk about.
Players that were probably in your lineup and that probably made you rip your hair out. So...
If you had hair, all due respect to bald people.
We should get a promo by a hair transplant company.
Or a shaving company.
Well, a hair transplant company, because you're pulling your hair out because of these duds every week. So
go to Del Rogers Hair Salon. I don't know.
All right, so let's go to a break.
All right, hold up. But I gotta ask this important question: what NFL star would use a hair transplant company?
I don't know.
How about Stone Cold Steve Austin's hair transplant company? All right, we'll get right back right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. We just talked about our studs, and now let's talk about our duds of the week.
Why don't you talk about a dud that you said to play, a stardom that you said start, and he just crapped the bed for you? Mitchell T.
I was going to say not him because he had an okay game.
He did not. He had 10 fantasy points.
That's still better than most.
He's Derek Carr.
Hey, at least this team won by a lot.
Okay, so yeah, but he had 10 fantasy points. That doesn't help you.
You know
win
who
fantasy.
else was a dud?
Hold on.
No. You know who else was a dud?
Who?
You're going to make fun of my guy? I'm not going to make fun of yours, but Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I didn't say to play him.
199 yards. That's all he had. That's Mitchell Trubisky
Yeah, that's
did
really
better
bad.
than that. Mitchell
That's really-
Trubisky did way better than that.
Another dud, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins had 8.6 fantasy points. Not good.
I don't believe you.
Oh, he did.
Doesn't
What
mean I can
about
believe
Tom
you.
Brady? I thought Brady was a dud. No. Did he have a terrible game? No. But I think we all would have expected him to go over 20 fantasy points. He had 17. What do you think about that? Only one touchdown pass. That's what really hurt him.
Sure, but you know who had a worse stud than that?
Who?
Joe Flacco.
You know, I'm going to name a quarterback who had a better game than Cousins, Flacco, Stafford, and Derek Carr, and his name is Nate Peterman. He had a better fantasy
your
football
mouth.
game.
Shut your mouth.
He had 12 points.
Shut up. You're lying.
He ran for 46 yards and a touchdown.
You're lying. Stop lying to me.
I am telling the truth.
The only way we can improve our relationship is if you don't lie to me.
And I, my friend, am telling you the absolute truth. How about running back duds? Let's talk running backs.
You know who's a major dud?
I think I do.
Who?
Go ahead.
No, you go. Ladies first.
No, go ahead and say it.
All right, well, it's going to be from an obvious selection, but Lamar Miller again.
How'd he do?
12 attempts, 21 yards,
Ouch.
4 fantasy points.
That's really bad.
That is really bad.
I thought you were going to say a certain Miami Dolphin running back.
Oh, you mean Kenyon Drake?
Yeah, how'd he do?
Well, he had 3 attempts for 9 yards.
I have a funny stat about
He
Kenyon
had
Drake.
3.5 points.
You ready for
But
this
wait,
stat?
can I tell you something else that's
Sure.
important about this team? Another dud is Frank Gore, who had 20 attempts for only 53 yards. He had 5 points
I
off
really
20
want to say the stat.
but he had 5 points off 20 rushing attempts.
I really want to say the stat. Can I go?
Sure.
Players with more carries than Kenyon Drake yesterday. You ready to play the game? All right, here we go. Nathan Peterman, Chris Ivory, Elijah McGuire, LeGarrette
Who?
Blount, Lamar Jackson, Alfred Blue, Drew Brees, Cordarrelle Patterson. And thank you for playing players that had more carries than Kenyon Drake did yesterday. Come back next time. Anyways, what do you say about that?
Well, Frank Gore did worse, in my opinion, because he had 20 rushing attempts and only got 53 yards rushing.
Mm-hmm. What about a guy who has been burning owners because he'll have a fluke good game every once in a while? Isaiah Crowell. Yeah.
You mean the 13 attempts for 49 yards?
If you listen to this podcast Friday, we said do not play him.
We both agreed with that.
Yes, we did.
And we got it right. High five. Wait, we got to be louder. We got to have them pick it up.
Boom.
Boom.
All right, so don't play Crowell ever. Just drop him. Not good. You have any other duds? There's a couple more. There's some big ones.
There is one. Adrian Peterson is a big dud for me.
Big dud.
9 attempts, 17 yards, 3.3 points.
Ouch.
You know who had a lot of points when it comes to rushing? Alex Smith. He had 22 yards. He had a 22-yard run. So he averaged 22 yards a carry.
Yeah. So a dud for me was Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon Johnson had come into this game with at least 10 fantasy points in 5 in a row. He had 5.9, 12 carries, 37 yards, only 3 catches, 7 yards. So he totaled 44 yards. A bad game for him.
4.4 fantasy points.
Bad game for him. So, yeah, I also have another running back.
I have another one from the Lions if you want to hear him. LeGarrette Blount,
What'd he do?
5 attempts for 8 yards.
5
Ever
attempts.
since he got ejected for that 49 game, he has not really played much.
No, and Kerryon Johnson's really been the guy to take over there.
Well, and also Blount has been known in the past for violent outbursts.
How about Mark Ingram? 9 carries, 33 yards. He was a dud yesterday. So, do you have any other duds, or would you like to go to wide receiver duds?
There's actually a big dud I want to talk about that faced a team that is not very good on defense. It was on Thursday night, the Oakland Raiders. Doug Martin, 11 attempts for 49 yards. He
Against
had
the 49ers.
6.9 points. Usually running backs do pretty well against 49ers, all things considered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
Well, everyone does well.
everybody
against
did
49ers.
bad for the Raiders on Thursday
Yeah,
night.
I just had to point that out there.
All right.
He wanted this start, and he wanted to prove how good he is, and that all he did.
So let's talk about wide receiver duds now. You got one?
Yeah, I think I got one.
Go ahead.
Jesse James.
Wide receivers.
Oh, right, same thing.
No.
Yeah, they do the same.
I
stats.
got one. Kenny Golladay. You know the Lions traded Golden Tate. We heard that Golladay and Marvin Jones would have a boost in their production. Golladay had a 2-catch game 3 games ago, a 1-catch game last week, 3 catches, 46 yards. We talk about how everybody calls him Mini-Tron. Well, guess what?
Mini-Tron.
They're not getting him the football. He only has 1 game over 100 yards. He's been a dud all season, and he has especially been a dud lately. So it's very tough to trust him moving forward. And they play the Bears this week, which is a tough game for that passing offense. So Kenny Golladay, a guy that you probably want to sit down on your bench for a while.
I have another one. I thought just James can because they're both receivers. Well, he is a tight end, but he gets receiving numbers, so I feel like that'd be the same thing. But granted, Tyreek Hill had a kind of a not so good game.
What'd he do?
He only had 12 points. He had 4 receptions for 69 yards, no touchdowns. Very unlike him. I know he's coming off an injury, but that's still very
unlike him, but a lot better than what Mike Evans did. The
Non-existent.
Buccaneers played in a game where they scored 28 points, where Fitzpatrick threw 4 touchdown passes, and all Mike Evans did was catch 1 pass for 16 yards. What about that, Jeff?
That's
catch.
That's inexcusable for your number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, 1 catch. Whereas
He's the number 1 receiver, undoubtedly. And you
Adam
only get 1
Humphries
catch.
had a good game. Even
But 1 catch from your
Yeah.
number 1 receiver is unexcusable. I don't care what they.
well, they threw him the ball a bunch of times.
Yeah.
He got targets, but didn't bring him in. So, any other duds you want to talk about for a wide receiver? I got a couple more.
This one seems kind of obvious, but Calvin Benjamin,
Mm-hmm.
4 receptions, 40 yards. That's it.
Do
8
you
points.
do you roster that guy at this point?
Well, yeah, because sometimes like he's people say, oh, he's due for a breakout game. It's always nice to have him on the bench, though. He's a bench guy. You know, it's nice to have him just in case.
I thought Jarvis Landry was a dud yesterday. 6 catches for 50 yards against a Chiefs defense that can definitely be had through the air. 8 fantasy points. I just expected him to have a touchdown in this game, have a little bit more of an impact. Emmanuel Sanders also had a poor game with 7.7 fantasy points. How about Devin Funchess? In a game where the Panthers score 42 points, he can only muster 6.4 fantasy points, 4 catches for 44 yards.
Yeah, true.
So, some big duds there. What about Randall Cobb? Randall Cobb, 4.9 fantasy
You have a lot of
points.
these duds, don't you?
There's a lot of wide receiver duds yesterday. And to be
Well,
fair,
that's
there's a lot
probably
of
most-
receivers that
yeah,
start. Like, there's a lot
I was
of
like,
receivers.
that's the most common position to have a dud in.
Yeah,
Because you never
exactly.
know who's going to have a great game on the
There's a lot of
receiving
more
end.
variance. I agree with that. Okay. So, do you want to move on to tight ends?
Sure.
Who's your dud?
Well, so there's 4 Jesse James. Usually he's a guy that is a go-to on the Steelers offense, and yet he only had 3 receptions.
McDonald was a dud, too.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers' offense is, like, you can even make an argument that Antonio Brown was a dud.
I have a dud.
Go for it.
Kyle Rudolph. 3.8 fantasy
The guy
points.
you picked in our fantasy game?
No, I didn't pick him.
Are you sure?
I picked Kelsey.
Oh, yeah. I thought you picked Rudolph for some reason.
Rudolph had 2 catches for 28 yards. That is not good. That counts for 3.8 fantasy points. So what about you? Do you have another dud?
Well, yeah. I hate going back to the same team, but it's like something you need to talk about, especially with how poorly the Oakland Raiders played. Jared Cook. Usually a guy that is very consistent, but he only had 2 receptions for 20 yards. He was only targeted twice.
Yeah, you would have expected him to have a big game that night on Thursday, but...
He outsizes a lot of those 49ers secondary. That's why I have to point these out, because sometimes you got to point out the obvious.
It's just that Raiders offense was really, really bad the other night, so everybody was affected. I have a dud. How about Jordan Reed? Jordan Reed... He has 1 touchdown on the year. He has now 5 straight games under 8 fantasy points, 4 catches, 34 yards. Is it over for Jordan Reed? Or is he just a mediocre tight end now? Because he's always been a guy who's had tremendous ability but always been hurt. But he's relatively healthy. So maybe injuries have caught up to him, you know?
True.
Do you see him getting back on track, or do you think that he is droppable at this point?
You know what? He is droppable.
Although he plays the Bucs this weekend. You might want to keep him around for that one.
He does.
If he doesn't have a good game against the Bucs, I would say get rid of him.
You know who's also a guy that like what used to be great, but now is like really fell off the face of the earth, and he's been on great teams. Jimmy Graham.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had 15 points, but like
he scored a touchdown yesterday.
Yeah, but how many times has he scored a touchdown? Usually he's getting like 10 touchdowns a season, and 1 is a lot from now.
Yeah, he only has 2 on the year. He's not playing very well. I mean, but you know what? Aaron Rodgers has never been a quarterback that has supported a tight end. I mean, we look back at it.
But
Jared
when you
Cook,
have Jimmy Graham,
but he had Jared Cook. He didn't really use him that well. There's just Martellus Bennett. I mean, there just hasn't been
you
guys.
You can also look at ever since he left New Orleans and went to Seattle. He
that's
was
true.
never the same.
That's true. I agree with that. But a whole thing about fantasy football is avoid Aaron Rodgers' tight ends. I mean, that's why a lot of people overdrafted Jimmy Graham this year. I stayed away from him in every season-long league because at best you're getting a mediocre tight end value because Aaron Rodgers loves to throw the ball outside. He loves to throw the ball to receivers. He doesn't even throw the ball to running backs that often. He's definitely a quarterback who likes to push the ball down the field and get the ball out wide to Devontae Adams.
He likes the deep ball, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's not the same quarterback as like a Brady, where Brady throws a lot to his tight ends and running backs.
Well, the thing is with Brady is remember that he injured his ACL and hasn't really thrown it far since.
And Brady's just more of a dinker and dunker, where Rodgers is more of like...
Dunker.
Yeah, Rodgers is more of like taking the big pieces out of the pie,
Do you see that guy on Instagram that says like, oh, he's the greatest of all time, like watch his precision, it's like him throwing check down passes, which I think is kind of funny, in all honesty.
I mean, if they're not going to defend it, you might as well do it, right?
Right.
Okay, how about dud defenses?
Can I just say the Bills and be done with it?
Well, but a lot of people didn't start the Bills, right? I mean...
True. I guess you could put the...
But the Bills had 7 fantasy points. That's not a dud performance, though. You have to give them credit there. For having an offense that bad, that's a pretty good...
I don't know. But I always put
I'll
them
go.
as one of my duds.
Redskins, 0 points. Yes, they played a good Falcons team, but the Redskins defense had been playing very well. One of the best defenses in the league. They had given up under 20 points in their last 3 games. They've given up under 20 points in 5 of their games. They came off a 13-point game, a 20, a 16, and they put up a 0. They gave up 38 points. They got crushed. Dud performance for the Redskins.
Can I tell you a big dud for me personally?
Yes.
The Rams defense.
Really?
Yeah, I know they might have had a lot of points or a certain amount of points, but just like giving up 45 points and all the there was a lot of stuff they could have easily picked off or certain situations of that matter of that. But to me, it felt more along the lines of this team is not strong on the defensive side as well as everyone says they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So would you drop them as your defense?
Oh, yeah, I would. I mean, well, I got to see who they're playing next, and I don't know off the top of my head who they are playing against right now. But I mean, the Rams defense, it's not one of the better defense. Yes, they can pressure the quarterback. They can create sacks. Yeah, they play Seattle next week. And when they played Seattle the first time, they had 1 fantasy point. So I would say it might be time to give up on them. They've had some really bad performances over the last month.
They were coming in as like a top defense, too. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying. But
they're one of the biggest disappointments of the season.
I think the biggest disappointment, though, is the Ravens' defense yesterday. They only give up 23 points, but they only get 1 fantasy point. They give up 23 points, but they don't do anything. They don't intercept Roethlisberger. They had a game where they didn't do anything, and the Steelers didn't give them the opportunity to make any plays. So the Ravens' defense and the Redskins are my 2 duds. Do you have another dud for defense, or are we good here?
No, I think those are the duds.
Okay, we're going to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about waiver wire pickups for this week as we embark on Week 10 of the NFL. Some players to look at in each position and why. And we'll do that next segment when we get back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. We finished our studs and duds. Now we're going to our waiver wire pickups. We're going to start with quarterbacks. Do you have a waiver wire pickup, Mark, or do you want me to go?
I'll go. Nick Mullins. Sounds like he's getting the start. Hear me out. They play the New York Giants this week at home.
He is officially getting the start, by the way.
He's playing the New York Giants at home. We know the Giants turn the ball over a lot, which means that he might have good field position to get some touchdown passes. He had 3 touchdown passes in his debut. Is he a risky play? Yes. But if you're looking for someone off the waiver wire that can get you 20 points, we know that Shanahan is pretty good at leading quarterbacks in fantasy football. We saw how good he was with Matt Ryan. We saw how good he was even with C.J. Beathard. I mean, C.J. Beathard wasn't necessarily winning football games, but fantasy value, it was there. I say Nick Mullins. Why not? He's playing against the Giants. Could be worse. Who do you got?
Well, you took mine, but you know, just fun fact, he was before that he was 0.8% on ESPN leagues and 3% of Yahoo leagues.
I think it'd be a little bit more this week.
I don't know why on earth someone would actually pick him before that.
Maybe, wouldn't it be awesome though if you were the guy that picked him up and was like, I'm just going to play this random play, and then he killed it, and you're just like, see, I'm hella smart, So,
smart is a strong word. It's like people thought you're probably stupid at first.
So who do you got for quarterback?
Well, Alex Smith.
I like that one.
He's not very he's not very picked highly, and he's been playing extremely well.
I mean, fantasy-wise, he's been kind of crappy, but I mean, he's been under 20 points in every game.
He's facing the very poor Bucks.
That's the kicker. Now, that is why you pick him up.
That's why I'm saying pick him up.
You pick him up because of who they're playing. They're playing a bad pass defense. So,
yes.
Okay. I have one. Somebody who's only 38% owned. Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
Mayfield
he's only 38%. Yeah, he
a 22-point game in fantasy this week. He's been at least over 18 the last 3 weeks. Atlanta, they're not a great passing defense, and the Browns are at home. I think the opponent and where the game is played is big here.
And, he's got one game with a new offense, at least a new offense coordinator. We saw Duke Johnson get involved. I think things are going up for the Browns, so I don't think that Mayfield is a bad play this week. If you need a quarterback, why not? Why not take Baker Mayfield? So do you have another quarterback or?
He was my main one. A lot of these guys are already picked. Do you say Ryan Fitzpatrick? I mean, he's probably picked up already a lot. That's why I'm hesitating saying him.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick. I mean, the jig's up with him, right? Everybody knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
How about Dak Prescott though? Dak Prescott, he's only 33% owned. He plays tonight, depending on how good he does. But his last two games, he's had 33 and 22 points, and they play the Eagles next week. So Eagles, they are not the best defense, especially against opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah, they've been really struggling, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. Could be an interesting play. I'd keep an eye, especially if he has a big game tonight against the Titans. Not the Titans are a great team, but they got a pretty good defense. So we'll see. How about waiver wire pickups at running back? Do you got one?
Well, it was really sad because we were talking about the running back for the 49ers that broke his arm, Mozart.
Yes.
And it was, if you don't look at that as you're squeamish, because it was really an awful, awful injury. But if you're looking for someone to pick up right now, going into week 10, Alfred Morris has really got a lot of more of the carries lately.
Yeah, I mean, in San Francisco, it's Breida and Morris now, so it makes sense.
And with Mozart gone, he's going to get a lot of carries. And
we know that Shanahan supports 2 running backs in fantasy football. So
absolutely. And he plays, and his best seasons in the NFL career have been with Shanahan as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and he'll probably get a lot of the goal line carries as he did against the Redskins. So he'll be the goal line back. He'll get you a cheap touchdown here
Absolutely.
and there.
He's not a player you would say you're number 1 or even 2, but if you have someone on your bye week, definitely put him in. It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, my pickup of the week is Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson had a breakout game. I told you to pick him up last week, but he's still available in about 50% of leagues. That number should definitely go down to about 15-20% available after this week. Duke Johnson's going to be a popular play. He's a good player. He's a pass catcher, very James White-like. And I think the Browns finally got him back in the lineup yesterday. They got him the ball. They passed him 9 catches, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield needs that type of player to take some of the pressure off of him. Duke Johnson, I like him for the rest of the season to be a solid fantasy player. Mm-hmm. What do you say about that?
Oh, I agree.
Okay.
Just hope he gets more carries too to add on to that.
Do you have another running back?
I have a wide receiver now.
All right, well, let me do one more running back so we keep him in order. Deontay Foreman. Again, this is about opportunity. This is about a starting running back, which is named Lamar Miller, who's not very good. Deontay Foreman's been on IR all year. They're going on a bye, so people will forget about him. But Deontay Foreman has the chance to really be the best running back in Houston. He is the one guy on the waiver wire right now that you could see getting 15 to 20 carries in a couple weeks. Whereas, I don't know if there's another guy out there with that type of upside. Would you agree with that?
His upside's pretty up.
Yeah, I mean, there's not very many guys.
Would you see what I did there?
I see what you did there. There's just not very many. I mean, him or Ronald Jones are the 2 guys that you could see taking over the backfield because the guys in front of them are not very good, and they need a spark there. But yeah. Let's move on to wide receivers. You said you had a wide receiver that you were interested in.
Yes, well, you talked about him during the studs.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably
Humphreys?
know. Yes, Adam Humphreys.
Yeah, he's had 2 good games in a row.
1% owned.
That number will go up.
Exactly my point. Get him while he's hot. Get him while he's available and get him while he's hot.
Yeah, Adam Humphreys. I would say if you play in a auction waivers league, I'd spend $8 or $9, depending on your, 8 or 9% of your budget, I should say. 8 or 9% of your budget, I think would be a nice little move for Humphreys. But if you're...
God, fantasy football is like math, isn't it? It's just math class.
It really is. It really is. There's a lot of math involved.
Just hearing you say it, all the percentages and stuff, I'm like, my God, it's like, dude, it's like going back to high school.
All right. So how about, I have a receiver.
Okay.
How about Marquez Valdez-Scantling for
Say
Green
that
Bay?
3 times fast.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Montez Valdez-Scantling.
So he has either 100 yards or a touchdown in all of his last 4 games. He has at least 11 fantasy points. He's in an Aaron Rodgers offense. So it looks like he has supplanted Geronimo Allison as the number 2 receiver. We saw Randall Cobb not being very involved lately. What do you think about that? What do you think about a guy that'll get 3 or 4 catches a game with a touchdown upside?
He needs to have at least a touchdown a game for me to be interested.
But he's got at least 11 fantasy points the last 4 games, at least.
That's why I'm saying like it's probably good to. But do you think he keep that? That's a risky pick.
He's a big play receiver though. He's like their Ted Ginn. Like he either gets a deep ball or he gets a touchdown.
That's not a good player to compare to be honest.
Well, what I'm saying is that he
won't
won't have over 4 or 5 catches, but he can have 100 yards or a touchdown. Like that's
yes, but I say that's a big risk. Big risk, kind of low reward type of thing.
I mean, we are talking about like your last receiver. I mean, we're talking about a receiver that you have that's been a dud, like maybe Allen Robinson or Corey Davis, who have done absolutely nothing. Okay.
Talk about disappointing seasons.
Do you have another wide receiver that you're considering?
I do. You might not agree with this. Maurice Harris.
Okay.
Washington Redskins. He's 0% owned. He was injured for the beginning of the season. He had just had his first double-digit points all season. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of running Redskins wide receivers are coming off injured or gone or cut or whatever, and he's going to be taking a lot of that slack, and he's going to be getting a lot of
run, yeah,
a lot of. And
targets. Who's he playing next week?
Playing the Buccaneers, who are not very good at receiving or at defending the receivers. So that's why he had 17 points last game. His only double digits, granted, all season. But like I said, coming off an injury, looking like
you can see the upside. You can see
absolutely. He has a very high upside.
Okay, I like that.
Low risk, high reward type thing.
I like that. How about a guy who is still only 9% owned? Cordarrelle Patterson, New England Patriots. Now,
are you saying that because he gets a lot of rushes?
He has at least 10 carries in the last 2 games. Now, we know Sony Michel will be back. But next week against Tennessee, he might provide you some value. He is still a receiver. He'll catch the ball every once in a while. But if as long as Sony Michel is out, Cordarrelle Patterson is pretty safe to get 10 to 13 touches, which is not bad, especially for a wide receiver. So, interesting play there. Mm-hmm. Any other receivers, or do you want to move on to tight ends?
We can move on to tight ends if you want.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, how about this one? Jack Doyle.
Yes, I just picked him up. Somebody dropped him, and
really?
he was on a bye week, and I picked him up.
Nice pickup.
I have Trey Burton, but Doyle is a little bit more secure.
He's only 25% owned in leagues.
Yeah, he should be owned like a lot.
Like, you could see Andrew Luck loves throwing to him, and he's a huge part of that offense. And I think he's going to be a huge pickup, and he should be a high. You can put him right into your lineup, and he will contribute immediately.
Yeah,
and he's coming off your bye week, so you don't have to worry about him anymore.
Exactly. I picked him up before he was a popular pickup. Like somebody, he was on a bye, and I was like, oh, I have a bench spot I can use right now.
Right.
I'll just stash
now he's your
him.
starter, isn't he?
Yeah, because it's either him or Trey Burton, and he's more reliable than Trey Burton.
Yeah, Andrew Luck found his go-to receiver.
He loves tight ends.
It's like Peyton Manning and Dallas Clark. Remember him?
Mm-hmm.
That's basically this combination.
And
right
what's also, too, is that Luck did so much damage with Ebron, and then Doyle comes back and kind of takes over from Ebron, which you thought, like, maybe Ebron was the new guy. But no, right away, Doyle came back.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about a tight end who's 8% owned, who had 10 for 83 and a touchdown yesterday? Jeff Heuerman, Denver Broncos. Now, look, they're on a bye week. So you can get him and stash him, or people might forget about him, and you can get him next week. But we're talking about a team that just traded Demaryius Thomas. They have young receivers, which Keenum might not be so trusting of yet. You get Heuerman, who has now had a touchdown in his last 2 games, 10 catches yesterday. You got to like the upside there. Tight end is one of those positions where there's just not a lot out there, and I mean, he's got the ability to be a good pickup.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, you're right. When it comes to tight ends, they're few and far between. But when you see one contributing, you got to take them as soon as possible if they're available. You got to take advantage of them being available.
Do you have any more tight ends, or do you want to go to defenses?
Is there really defenses?
Oh, there's defenses.
All right, go for it.
All right, so last week I told you before we ended, pick up the Jets defense. Why did I say that, Jeff? Why did I tell everybody pick up the Jets defense?
Because you're crazy?
Because guess who the Jets are playing this weekend?
The worst team in the league?
Just guess.
Well,
They're playing the Buffalo Bills.
you didn't let me answer.
Will Peterman start? Will Peterman start, yes or no? If he does...
I have no clue.
The Jets are
How
at
about
home.
just play the injured Josh Allen? I think he'd be better than
Let him throw left-handed?
Yeah, I think that would be better than the healthy Nathan Peterman.
All right, so if you picked up the Jets defense last week and you saw the show, the blank show that Nathan Peterman is on Sunday, then you saw why I said to pick up the Jets defense.
Oh,
but,
the Defecate show? Got it.
yes. Pick up the Jets defense if you haven't already. Please. I'm telling you, even if they start Derek Anderson, did you see what he did against the Patriots? Not much better. So, pick up the Jets defense. Do you have another? Do you have a defense? I have a couple defenses that I can tell you about here, but if you don't have one, I can just keep going.
This one seems. I was saying high on this, but now since they played not so well last week, but I gotta go with the Washington Redskins still.
Okay, who are they playing?
Next week they are playing. Let me just pull this up right here. They are playing
Tampa Bay. Ooh, I don't know, man. I might want to avoid that game. Avoid that defense, right?
Well, the thing is, Fitzpatrick throws interceptions also.
Yeah.
And they're coming off a loss, and they're looking to rebound, and they're facing a not so good off our defense in the Buccaneers as well.
But do you trust them after giving up that many points to the Falcons?
But the Falcons have a better offense.
But the Bucs put up points.
They do, granted, but Fitzpatrick throws costly plays as well.
I agree.
And there could be pick sixes in there. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So you like the risk.
There's a risk of a pick six in this game better than anyone else.
All right, I got one.
Okay.
Colts defense. They are playing Jacksonville. Speaking of risky or pick six opportunities.
Absolutely.
You have the Colts defense, who, you know what? They've actually been pretty okay. Like, a lot of people think about the Colts, and they're like, man, this defense is terrible. They have 3 games over 10 fantasy points. They have an interception in every game except for 2. They have a forced fumble, or they have a fumble recovery in every game but 2. Like, this team creates turnovers, and we're talking about Blake Bortles. We know what he does. He's a turnover machine. There could be a good play there. They do get him at home, too. So the Colts will be at home. The crowd noise, it's a big game for the Colts as they're actually on the upturn. They're looking good lately. I like them in this game.
I have one more defense.
Go ahead.
The 49ers. You know why?
They're playing Eli.
They're playing Eli Manning and the Giants. Nothing against the Giants. Like, the Niners defense has not been the best, but when they're playing the Giants, the New York Giants, and Eli Manning's throwing interceptions like it's
Is
nobody's
Eli
business.
starting? Because this is kind of like the time where we expect
Okay,
maybe
who else
a
is going to
change.
start?
Lauletta.
But he just got arrested.
He's from Richmond. Spiders.
So he got arrested.
All right. I got one more defense for you before we go to break.
But do you agree with that pick, though?
I like that. Yeah, there's
Because
risk there.
they just
But
had a great game against Derek Carr, and Eli Manning's kind
my
of like
only
Derek
issue,
Carr.
though, is the Niners can't tackle very well, and Odell and Saquon will probably get loose for a couple long touchdowns.
But is Eli going to be able to get them the ball?
Well, the Niners defense doesn't really rush the passer very well. They did last game, granted, but
The Giants have one win for a reason.
I got one last defense before we go to break.
Go for it.
I talked about the Bills against the Jets. Or the Jets against the Bills. How about the Bills against Jets? The Bills' defense, very good defense, underrated. Their offense is terrible, but they play Sam Darnold, who just threw 4 picks. The Bills' pass defense is one of the best in the league. There's some opportunity for pick 6 right there. This game could be 3 pick 6s in the game between these two quarterbacks. Darnold versus Peterman. Are you ready?
God, no.
All right, we'll go to break. We come back. We're overdue.
I love you just pick 2 defenses that are playing each other.
We'll come back from break. We'll talk to you about the Steelers and the Le'Veon Bell situation when we return.
Oh, here we go again.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. We're on the final stretch here. We just talked about our waiver wire pickups for every position. Now we're going to other news that involves your fantasy football teams, especially if you have James Conner. Tell them what they've won, Mark.
I don't know. Well, if they have won, well, Le'Veon Bell is not back.
It was a joke.
Le'Veon Bell is not back, but he should be back. He should be back this week because if he's not, then he does not accrue 1 year of his contract, which means that he can be franchised another time. So,
do you think he would be?
I don't know. I really don't. But he's not back yet. Doesn't mean he won't be back this week. This is the week he has to report. So I wouldn't be surprised if he reports later in the week, like Thursday, Friday, something like that.
Sunday morning.
Yeah, maybe, right.
How's it going? I checked in.
But this is more about James Conner owners. Now this week, James Conner should be fine. Should be a decent play.
Let me just one thing make perfectly clear. If Le'Veon Bell returns, James Conner's been playing so well that he's going to get as many, maybe more carries than Bell does.
Oh, absolutely. But
so I think that's an important thing. If you have Conner, do not bench him.
If you have Conner and you can still trade him, though, this week is a trade deadline in fantasy football. You need to trade him because you can get good players for him. If Le'Veon Bell comes back, James Conner might be almost irrelevant in 2 to 3 weeks. He might be. There's a chance he could get less than 5 carries a game in 4 weeks.
He has to play at his best in these next couple weeks if Le'Veon returns.
But even if Le'Veon returns and they split, do you want a 10-carry James Conner? Or do you want a better value at a different position, wide receiver, something like that? And he's a flex player at that point.
He's been racking up some serious points.
And that's why you use that leverage to get a good player, to get a solid player.
But he might be able to put you into a title contention.
Right, but he can play you out of one. That's the thing. The risk there is that you keep James Conner and he's been your stud all year, and then he becomes irrelevant when fantasy football playoffs come around, or he's at best a flex player.
Okay, I see what you're getting at, but the fact of the...
He's an RB1 right now. Will he be an RB1 in 3 weeks if Le'Veon Bell comes back? Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
But I'm still starting him.
Absolutely. You start him until Le'Veon Bell takes too much of the workload from him.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
James Conner's been playing so well, they would be stupid not to give him half the carries at least for the next couple of weeks.
I would argue that you would not be smart to keep Conner if you still have him. You should have traded him already, but if you can still trade him, if somebody's not like, no, I'm not trading him.
If you traded for him, it's okay too.
Depending on what you gave up.
You're really kind of convincing the people not to trade for him also that are considering it.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't trade for him at all. Why would I trade for a running back who might be on my bench?
Our listeners are from all over, so there's different people that have...
Some of them have him, but if they don't have him, don't go get him. And if you have him, try and get rid of him. That's all I'm saying.
What if the entire league watches this, listens to this? You're costing some people...
There's a couple people in my fantasy league that they still have James Conner. They haven't traded him, and I think
they don't listen to this show.
I think they're absolutely wrong for that. I think that they've made a huge mistake, but we'll see how their seasons end.
Okay, granted.
Maybe I'll be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll fully.
James Conner, it's so weird. We weren't even saying his name at week 1. Now he's
been phenomenal. I don't want to take away he's not good. Absolutely. He's a great player.
He's probably, I could say he's top 5 running back right now.
That's the one thing that when we do this show, when we have to separate like if you can be good in real life and be somebody who you need to trade in fantasy football, because he's been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, let's be real. He's been everything and more the Steelers wanted.
Honestly, if Le'Veon was still there and he checked him before the trade deadline, I wouldn't have been surprised if someone wanted James Conner to try to trade for him in the actual NFL trade deadline.
Yeah, James Conner is making it very clear that the Steelers will not be paying Le'Veon Bell long-term money because he has shown that he can fill in those shoes pretty well.
He's filling in them great, and if he doesn't get the money, he's going to get it from somewhere else.
Cool. So that's all we got for today. Join us on Friday as we pick our teams, and I know Jeff he'll be salivating to get a chance to get in the win column against me. I know the taste in his mouth from this last weekend's a little bit bitter. But that's okay, because he had won a couple times, so the pendulum has swung the other way. But we'll do that on Friday. We'll talk to you about Stardom and Sit-em, your favorite segment, Stardom and Sit-em for this weekend, as we look ahead to the matchups of your team and your players who they'll be facing this weekend. Anything left to say, Jeff?
No, I've been enjoying talking fantasy football with you, Mark.
All right, awesome. We'll see you.
Are you going to reciprocate?
Yes, it's been good. Yes, fun.
That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Please tune in on Friday where we continue our fantasy football talks and where things get more interesting. Maybe we'll see Le'Veon Bell. Maybe we won't. We will see on Friday. We will see you then.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.